I am cooking short rib rendang, which is a dish that we do at Fatty Crab. Fatty Crab is a Malaysian-inspired restaurant. We actually have two of them. They're both in Manhattan, one near the Meatpacking District in the West Village on Hudson Street, the other one on the Upper West Side. Rendang is a traditional method of preparation. Rendang itself is not a dish specifically, it's a method. And this is beef rendang. Most often beef is cooked in the rendang preparation. Rendang preparation began, I think the first recorded history of a rendang recipe was in the 1550s. And the word is that it started in Western Sumatra, which is Indonesia. The people there on the western part of Sumatra, the Minangkabau, are the name of the peoples who sort of natives of the island who developed this dish. And really the idea was to cook beef or any other protein, fish, or even sometimes vegetables. They cook cassava or jackfruit, which is a big, huge fruit that can grow up to 80 pounds. It's giant. Jackfruit or fish or chicken or mutton, and of course beef, as we're doing today, to preserve it. You cook it in spices and coconut milk until all the coconut milk is absorbed and the spices have been absorbed, and then you don't have to refrigerate it. And there's two methods to rendang. One is a dry method, and the other one is a wet method they call kalio. And the dry method is when you really cook it, where it goes from sort of being braised or simmered in a pot with coconut milk and spices to the point where it's actually frying, because all the milk and all the moisture has been absorbed, either evaporated or absorbed into the meat, and you're just left with the oil that's come out of the coconut milk, and then the meat begins to fry up a little bit, and it gets very dry and coated in all these spices. And people keep it for up to 3 months, just like in Tupperware containers on their shelves. It's amazing. This is ginger that I'm putting into our food processor here. This is for a marinade for the beef short ribs. This is galangal, by the way, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with galangal, but I left a little bit out so we can pass that around. You guys can smell it too. It's got a sort of a headier smell than ginger, with which I'm sure you're all familiar. This is fresh turmeric root. So galangal goes in there, fresh turmeric root, which is very thin-skinned, which I can just drop in there, and we don't have to peel. And of course, turmeric has that deep yellow color, yellow-orange color. It has a great smell too. We've got turmeric, ginger, galangal, and we've got chili. This is the Thai bird chili, which we throw into the mix. And our paste, we make this method. This method it's actually called rendang Minangkabau, sorry, after the natives of Western Sumatra. It calls for both the fresh chili and the dried chili that's soaked in water here, soaked in warm water. So drop a few in there. This, of course, is lemongrass, an essential flavoring. You can make this at home all in the mortar and pestle. It'll just take you more time. And I'm going to show you both the mortar and pestle usage as well as using the food processor. For the paste, for the turmeric paste, I've chosen to use the food processor. And there's another paste that we're going to make with shallot and garlic, a very simple paste to go into the braise, where I'll use the mortar and pestle. Then we just grind this up real simply. And you smell this? Yeah, it smells great. It's fresh, it's bright. And what we end up with is this. That's the idea. So it's a real intense paste. We could keep pureeing this and keep pureeing this here. But whew, it's intense, right? There's a lot of strong smells in there. You guys are welcome to come up and smell this. I'm going to pass around this bowl because there's a sharp blade in it. These are all natural beef short ribs that we buy from, this meat is not local. We have a hard time with local beef. There's only so much that we can get. There's not a lot of beef raised in New York State yet. This is from Kentucky, and it's from an all-natural farm. It's pasture raised and finished on a little bit of grain. Now, I don't mind staining my hands, but if you do, you can always wear gloves when you do this part. I like to use my hands. I don't like anything between my skin and my food. And Malaysians like to eat with their hands, eating the rice with their hands, and I learned to eat rice and all the food with my hands living in Malaysia, living in Kuala Lumpur. And there was something I read, it said, eating your food with utensils is like having sex without touching, or something like that. It was It didn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense, but at the same time, it revealed the passion for eating with your hands. Rub these down really well. And then what I do and what we do at the restaurant is, we rub this down with a ton of this paste and a little bit of salt, and I'll give it a little sprinkle of salt, and then we'll refrigerate it for 48 hours before we cook it. So that's a solid 2-day process. You can go just 24 hours and it'll be good still, but if you can afford to wait. The next stage for cooking is you want to add a little more sort of aromatic quality to it. So what I like to do often is when I do the braise, I'll take a couple stalks of lemongrass. Again, cutting the bottoms. This time maybe not as much because I'm not going to puree or pulse or blend or grind or pound the lemongrass. I'm actually just going to bruise it. And I'm just going to, or if you have your pestle, you can give it a good smash. I love that thing. Anyway, when I worked for Thomas Keller at the French Laundry in the late 90s in California, he was so adamant about salt. Salt seasoning. It's like all those young cooks, they just have to learn how to use salt first. Let's start with the real basics. It's like starting with washing the rice. If you get the simple things wrong, nothing else is going to be good. So remember to salt your food. Salt is not evil if you're not working with processed food. So this is shallot and some palm sugar. It's going to be a real simple paste. Palm sugar here. There are different kinds of palm sugar. I just want to mention that there's light palm sugar and then there's dark palm sugar. It used to be that palm sugar came mainly just from like the sugar palm or date palm, but now you have it from the Arenga palm tree, and this is called gula jawa, which is an Indonesian palm sugar, and it's from the Palmyra palm. So you see it. It's a vast difference, obviously, right? This is like molassesy and like brown sugar, and it's unlike anything else. Not a lot of people understand that in Southeast Asian cooking, there's a tremendous amount of prep work if you want to make it fresh and make it real. There are a lot of simpler restaurants, and restaurants that were open just to be commercial, simple enterprises and appeal to Western tastes, maybe use pre-made curry paste and these types of things. And and we're able to charge less money, maybe not discerning in terms of the products they bought. But there are a few people who have really begun to start doing it right. And it takes a lot of labor to do this kind of stuff. It takes a lot of labor, and this is one paste out of many. But there's sort of a stigma attached to the cuisine where it should be inexpensive, and it's something that that we battle at Fatty Crab often. Where we have to charge for food, and because we make it all from scratch, and it's. What's great about what Lucky Rice, I think, is bringing attention to these Asian cuisines and how incredibly good they can be. And Japan and Japanese cuisine has been able to break through those barriers, but I haven't seen Southeast Asian food able to really break through that barrier yet. But it's coming. So then we add a lot of garlic and shallot and palm sugar, which is going to further enhance the flavor. This is getting ready to go in the oven now and braise. This is the dried Assam Geligur fruit. It grows on a tree. People sometimes mistake it as tamarind or dried tamarind. It's not tamarind. It actually has no relation to tamarind at all. But it's a souring agent, such as using tamarind, or what we use. We make green mango salads, as guys were talking about earlier. And we'll save the pits, and we'll use green mango pits in soups to sour soups. So there's a variety of different souring agents we use. Of course, vinegars, coconut vinegar, rice wine vinegar, lime juice, lemon juice, etc. So this is about ready to go into the oven. The other addition is, of course, coconut milk. And now here comes the major difference in, between how I and me and my guys run the rendang and how the traditional dish is done. This we braise very slowly at a low temperature, more of a Western technique. We don't cook it on the stove top, we don't cook it down and dry it out. We want to braise it so it's nice and tender, and there is a little bit of this delicious sauce that's made from the marinade and the coconut milk together. We want to make sure we want our short ribs to be soft and tender fork tender and just delicious. And that's more of a Western approach to it. But up until this point, everything else is the same. But then we go in the oven and we braise it out. We braise it out around 300 degrees. This is toasted grated coconut. What you do is you buy coconut and grate it, fresh coconut, right? And then put it in a pan and slowly toast it. And it takes a while over a low flame because you don't want to burn it. Keep it moving because there's natural sugars in the coconut meat. And it's called kerisik. It's spelled K-E-R-I-S-I-K. And it's used as a garnish. We add it to the braise. Usually, you add it. You don't have to add it right away. You can, or you can add it at the end. We also use it as a little garnish to finish the dish. This is a traditional addition in rendongs. It's used to sort of absorb the last bit of moisture and sort of create a crispy, sweeter coating on the beef or chicken or whatever is being used. As I said earlier in the demonstration, there's the wet and the dry rendang. This is obviously the wet, and they refer to it as kalio, K-A-L-I-O. And so we like to keep that. It's delicious. So aromatic, so lovely. Now what we do, this is this gula jawa that I passed around. It's mixed with a little bit of water, and there's a recipe for you in your recipe book. It's mixed with a little bit of water and just cooked down to make a thick syrup. And it's so excellent. This is not necessarily common in Malaysia, but we find it's so delicious to take a little bit of it and drizzle it right over the rendang, and then finish it off, as I had mentioned before, with some of the finely shredded kaffir lime leaves. And this is the dish, simple and delicious, and it's really it's braised short rib, just in a slightly different style. Thank you very much.